Olivia! Her name still tasted like ash on my tongue. 32 years old, and I felt like I'd lived a lifetime in the last few months. Before, it was easy, predictable. Olivia, my fiancée, a picture of poised perfection. Me, the slightly goofy guy who adored her, always trying to make her smile. 4 years together, 8 months engaged. Everyone thought we were it. The golden couple. Except the gold was all fool's gold. God, I'd poured everything into that relationship. I planned every date, surprised her with stupid little gifts. Remember that ridiculous gourmet donut place she loved? Way across town? I'd drive there at 6 a.m. just to get her a box when she had a rough day at work. I even picked up freelance gigs on top of my regular job, burning the midnight oil, all so I could afford the goddamn ring she subtly hinted at. A goddamn rock that probably cost more than my first car. And the Mustang. The goddamn 1967 Mustang. I'd seen a look of nostalgia flicker across her face once when we passed one on the street. That was all it took. I spent months restoring that car. Every weekend, every spare dollar went into that rusting hulk of metal. Slept under it sometimes, shivering in the garage just to get the engine running right. It was supposed to be a symbol of my love, a testament to how much I cared, a romantic gesture. Olivia, meanwhile, was all about appearances. Instagram filters, perfectly staged photos at fancy restaurants, endless declarations of how blessed she was. Living my best life with my best friend. She'd type with a nauseatingly sweet emoji. I didn't care. I told myself that someone had to be the stable one, the grounded one. I figured that's just how relationships worked, right? One person loves harder. One person gives more. Enter Derek, my cousin, 31, recently divorced, oozing with that sleazy charm that women apparently ate up. He's been bankrolled by his dad since the split. Got him a job at one of his dealerships, pays for his apartment. The whole package. Derek always thought he was God's gift to women. The smooth talker, the joke teller. We were okay growing up. Some shared memories, but nothing that warranted the betrayal that was to come. Olivia and Derek, though, they had this thing from the moment they met. At a family BBQ 2 years back. She'd laugh way too hard at his jokes. Always seemed to gravitate towards him at family events. I remember this Christmas party. I couldn't find her for 30 minutes. Then I walk into the kitchen, and there they are. Derek showing her how to make an old-fashioned, standing way too close, hands practically touching. I remember the way their eyes locked when I walked in. I brushed it off. God, I was blind. I wrote it off as Olivia being her usual social butterfly. I trusted her. I loved her. Every month, my parents hosted these excruciatingly boring family dinners. The same tired conversations about promotions and honor rolls. Olivia was always insistent that we go. Weirdly upset if I even suggested skipping. Should have been my first fucking clue. My uncle, Keith, the puppet master. He ran our family, plain and simple. Loaded. Owns a string of dealerships. He'd been helping my parents financially since I was a kid. Paid for their house, paid for my college. Whatever Keith said was basically law. I hated it, but I kept my mouth shut to keep the peace. This particular dinner was at my parents' place. Last Sunday, my mom made her famous pot roast, the one everyone pretends to love. The usual suspects were there. My other cousins, my sister Emma, Keith, holding court at the head of the table like he was a goddamn king. About an hour in, I noticed Olivia kept disappearing. Work call, she said the first time, coming back 15 minutes later. Then again, and again. I didn't think much of it, until I realized her phone was sitting right there on the table. Silent. Dead. The fourth time she excused herself. I waited a few minutes, then went looking for her. Bathroom? Empty. Front porch? Nothing. I passed my dad's home office and heard voices. Hushed, frantic voices. The door was cracked just enough that I could see through. What I saw, it punched the air out of my lungs. It stole the ground from beneath my feet. Olivia was sitting on my dad's desk, and Derek's hands were all over her. The way they were touching, the way they were leaning into each other. This wasn't some drunken mistake. It was practiced, rehearsed. It wasn't their first time. Rage. A blinding, burning rage. It consumed me. I kicked the door open, slamming it against the wall. They jumped apart like I'd electrocuted them. The look on their faces. First, shock. Then, a pathetic attempt at innocence. It's not what it looks like. Derek actually had the balls to say. Not what it looks like? I roared, grabbing his shirt, slamming him against my dad's bookshelf. Golf trophies crashed to the floor. Glass shattered. I was seeing red. You're making out with my fiancé in my parents' house. And it's not what it looks like? Olivia started crying. The same goddamn lines you hear in movies. I'm sorry! It just happened. I couldn't even look at her. My eyes were locked on Derek. We grew up together. Fishing trips, college graduations, and there he was, stabbing me in the back in the most repulsive way imaginable. The whole house descended on us. My parents, Keith, Emma. My mom gasped at the broken trophies. My dad looked bewildered. Keith stepped forward, pulling me off Derek like I was some out-of-control teenager. What the hell is going on here? He demanded. I was shaking, still fueled by pure anger. Tell them, Derek, I choked out. Tell them what you were doing with Olivia. Derek just stammered. Olivia was sobbing in the corner, mascara streaking her face. Keith stepped between me and Derek, shielding him. That's enough, he said. Whatever this is, we're not doing it at a family dinner. I looked at everyone, staring at me, judging me. I just caught Olivia and Derek making out in there, I said, my voice shaking. They've been sneaking around behind my back. Silence. An oppressive, suffocating silence. Then my mom said, they probably just had too much to drink. My dad chimed in, maybe you misinterpreted what you saw. Misinterpreted? I saw what I saw. In that moment, I knew I was alone. Keith was already in damage control mode. My parents would follow his lead, like they always did. They would minimize it. Sweep it under the rug. Pretend everything was fine. I grabbed my car keys. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't take Olivia with me. Let her figure out her own way home. Honestly, I didn't give a damn if Derek drove her, if she walked, if she teleported. I drove around for hours, ending up at some nameless coffee shop downtown. Checked my phone. 32 messages from Olivia. The usual cheater's garbage. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. Please come home so we can talk about it. Talk about what, exactly? How long had she been cheating? How many times? Was it just Derek? Or were there others too? I crashed at my buddy Mike's place that night. Couldn't face going back to our apartment. Not knowing what I knew. Not anymore. Waking up at Mike's place was like being hit by a truck. A hangover, yeah, but mostly the crushing weight of reality. My entire life, as I knew it, had imploded. Mike's a good dude. Didn't ask too many questions. Just handed me a coffee and told me I could stay as long as I needed. Grateful for that. 50+ notifications on my phone by morning. Mostly from Olivia, of course, but also from my mom, my dad, even Keith. I ignored them all and went to take the world's longest shower, hoping the hot water would somehow wash away the image of Olivia and Derek plastered on my retinas. It didn't work. After I got dressed, my phone rang again. Emma! My sister. 3 years younger, way smarter. She's always been the only one in our family who calls out the bullshit. I picked up. Immediately, holy shit. Are you okay? Mom called me crying last night but wouldn't tell me what happened. So I got it from cousin Jen. Is it true about Olivia and Derek? I told her everything. Felt good to finally talk to someone who wasn't immediately trying to make excuses for them. Emma just listened, then said, "What a couple of assholes." I'm so sorry, bro. Simple as that. Around noon, my mom called. Started in right away with, "You need to talk to Olivia, sweetie. She's absolutely devastated. Everyone makes mistakes." Mom, I lost it a little. Finding the wrong exit on the highway is a mistake. Making out with your fiancé's cousin at a family dinner is a choice. She got quiet. "I know you're hurt, but family is family. We need to figure out how to move forward together." Translation: Keith doesn't want any drama disrupting his perfect little family hierarchy. Speaking of the devil, my phone rang again right after I got off with Mom. "Keith, you gotta understand something about Keith. He's not someone you ignore. Not in our family. 6'2", ex-military, made his fortune in car dealerships, basically holds financial power over everyone. Paid for my college, got me my first job. My parents might as well be his employees for how much they depend on his generosity. So, even though I was furious, I answered. "You made quite a scene last night," he said, not even bothering with a hello. "I caught my fiancé cheating on me with Derek," I replied, my voice tight. "What did you expect?" "Look, these things happen," Keith said, like we were talking about a fender bender. "Derek's going through a rough patch since his divorce. He made a mistake. Olivia made a mistake. But causing a scene like that at your parents' house, that was uncalled for." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Uncalled for? Are you serious right now?" "I am. And I think you need to calm down and handle this like an adult." "Derek already apologized to me." "To you?" I interrupted. "Why the fuck is he apologizing to you?" Keith's voice got that stern tone he uses when he's pulling rank. "Because I'm the one who had to calm your parents down after your outburst." "Look, son, everyone makes mistakes. You need to figure out if you can forgive Olivia and move forward." That was the moment something in me snapped. I'd spent my whole life tiptoeing around Keith, grateful for his generosity, letting him dictate how our family operates. And now he was trying to dictate how I should respond to being betrayed. I hung up on him, literally just ended the call mid-sentence. Nobody in my family had ever hung up on Keith before. Then, I turned off my phone and went for a drive, just to clear my head. When I got back to Mike's place, I turned my phone back on and saw I had missed calls from literally everyone in my family except Emma, plus about 20 more pathetic messages from Olivia. I just made myself a sandwich when there was a knock at the door. Mike opened it, then came back looking awkward. Your parents are here." "Great. Just what I needed." They were standing in Mike's living room, looking completely out of place. My mom had clearly been crying. My dad had that constipated look he gets when he's uncomfortable. I didn't invite them to sit down or anything. Just stood there with my arms crossed, waiting for whatever lecture they'd prepared. My dad started, "Son, we're worried about you." "Worried about me? What about being worried about the fact that Olivia and Derek betrayed me?" My mom wiped her eyes. "We're not saying what they did was right, but people make mistakes, and families forgive each other." "This isn't some minor infraction, Mom," I said, my voice rising. "She was going to marry me. We were planning a life together." My dad shifted uncomfortably. "Keith thinks." "I don't give a fuck what Keith thinks," I snapped. My parents exchanged a look that spoke volumes. "Keith has always been there for this family," my dad said carefully. "He helped us buy our house. He got Derek his job after the divorce. He paid for your college, for God's sake." And there it was, the real reason they were there. Keith was upset that I disrespected him, and they were doing damage control. So, because Uncle Keith gives everyone money, I'm supposed to pretend it's fine that my fiancé cheated on me with my cousin? "No, but..." My mom started. "But nothing," I interrupted. "You're not here because you care about me. You're here because Keith told you to fix this." My dad's face hardened. "That's not fair. We care about everyone in this family, just not as much as you care about keeping Keith happy," I said. My mom started crying again, and I felt a pang of guilt. I mean, it's not entirely their fault. They're so dependent on Keith. The economy hit them hard back in 2008. and Keith swooped in to save them. But they've been under his thumb ever since. Look, I said, a little calmer. I know you guys are in a tough spot, but I'm not going to pretend everything's okay when it's not. I can't be around Olivia or Derek right now. Maybe ever. And I'm definitely not going to apologize to Keith for hanging up on him. My dad sighed. Keith's hosting a family dinner next Sunday. He expects everyone to be there. Including you? I laughed. Not happening. Please, my mom begged. Just come to dinner. Hear Keith out. That's all we're asking. I'll think about it, I lied, just to get them to leave. No way in hell was I going to sit through a dinner with Olivia and Derek while Keith lectured everyone about family unity. I stayed at Mike's for a few more days, then found a short-term rental that I could afford without dipping into the savings Olivia and I had for the wedding. The irony of using my honeymoon fund to pay for a security deposit on a sad little studio apartment wasn't lost on me. I finally went back to our place to get my stuff when I knew Olivia would be at work. Half expected her to have changed the locks or something, but she hadn't. The apartment looked exactly the same, except she'd put all our engagement photos face down. Real mature. I just grabbed my clothes, my PlayStation, and a few other essentials. Left all of the furniture and kitchen stuff. I could buy new plates, but I couldn't stand the thought of sitting on the couch where we'd spent so many nights together, now tainted by the knowledge that she'd been lying to my face. As I was loading the last box into my car, our neighbor from across the hall stopped me. She's this sweet old Indian lady who always brings us homemade samosas. Young man, she said, her eyes sad. That girl has had many visitors while you were gone. Men visitors. Late at night. Great. So, not only was Olivia cheating with Derek, but apparently others too. Or maybe Mrs. Patel was just confused. Either way, I didn't want to know. I thanked her and got the hell out of there. That night, I blocked Olivia's number. Not out of spite, but for my own sanity. I couldn't keep seeing her name pop up with another excuse or apology. It was time to move on. The first week in my new place was rough. Not going to lie. It's this tiny studio above a Thai restaurant that smells like curry 24/7, but at least it was mine. No memories of Olivia, no family drama, just me, trying to put my life back together one day at a time. Work was a good distraction. I'm a project manager at a construction company. Nothing fancy, but it pays decent. My boss was actually pretty cool about everything. Wish my family could take notes from my boss. About a week after I moved into my new place, Emma texted asking if I wanted company. She showed up with a large pizza and we ended up talking for hours. She immediately joked about my minimalist apartment, which was really just a sad little studio above a Thai restaurant. We got into the whole family situation, with Emma telling me our parents thought I was being difficult, like not wanting to sit around with the people who betrayed me, while Keith lectures everyone about forgiveness, was somehow unreasonable. What really surprised me was finding out how deep Keith's control went. Derek was literally Keith's charity case, which explained why everyone was giving him a pass. When I asked about Olivia, Emma told me she'd been at our parents' house, crying and claiming it was a one-time mistake. And Keith was there too, apparently taking a personal interest in resolving the situation. Emma warned me to be careful. Said this wasn't just about money, but about influence. If I stood up to Keith, others might get ideas. She said that by refusing to forgive and forget, I wasn't just standing up for myself, but challenging the whole family power structure. Stand your ground if that's what you believe in, she told me. Just know it won't be easy. And for what it's worth, I've got your back. Having Emma on my side made me feel less alone in this whole mess. After Emma left, I checked my phone and saw I had a voicemail from Olivia. Hey, it's me. I know you probably hate me right now, and I don't blame you. But please, can we just talk? I never meant to hurt you. Derek and it was stupid, a mistake. I miss you so much. Please call me back. I love you. I deleted it immediately. The next morning, I got a text from cousin Jen, checking in. despite Keith telling everyone to not bother me. Even in her kindness, she acknowledged his authority. When I asked about Derek, she revealed Keith was secretly pissed at him, but keeping up appearances publicly. Probably more concerned about his image as the perfect family patriarch than my actual feelings. Classic Keith. Then I got a formal invitation in my email for Sunday dinner at the home of Keith, like it was some kind of royal summons. The email listed the time, the dress code business casual, because Keith is pretentious like that, and even the menu at the bottom. There was a personal note. Your presence is required as we have important family matters to discuss. Required. Not requested. Required. Like I was an employee being called into a meeting. I hit delete without responding. That evening, my dad called. Did you get Keith's invitation? He asked without preamble. Yeah, I got it. You're not going, are you? Not going. My dad sighed heavily. Son, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Keith is willing to put this whole unpleasantness behind us. Why can't you do the same? Because it's not up to Keith to decide when I'm over being betrayed by my fiancé and cousin, I said. And it's definitely not up to him to order me to a dinner where I have to pretend everything's fine when it's not. This isn't just about you, my dad said, his voice rising. This is affecting the whole family. Your mother barely sleeps. Emma's being difficult too. Even Jen's asking questions. So everyone should just fall in line because it's easier? Keith has been very patient. Dad, I interrupted. I'm going to say this one more time. I don't care what Keith wants. I don't care if he's being patient. This is my life, not his TV show to direct. My dad was quiet for a moment. Then, in a lower voice, he said, just think about coming for your mother's sake. If not for anything else. The guilt trip. Almost worked. Almost. But then I thought about sitting across a table from Olivia and Derek, making small talk while Keith played benevolent dictator, and I knew I couldn't do it. I'll send Mom some flowers, I said and hung up. That night, I had trouble sleeping, kept going over and over the situation in my head, wondering if I was the crazy one. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should just go to the dinner, say my piece, and be done with it. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw Olivia and Derek together, and the anger came flooding back. No, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wrong to stand my ground. And if Keith and the rest of the family couldn't respect that, then maybe they weren't the kind of family I wanted in my life anyway. The next morning, I woke up to 3 missed calls from Uncle Keith. The battle lines were clearly drawn, and Sunday dinner was approaching fast. Sunday came, and my phone blew up with texts and calls about Keith's dinner. I ignored them all and went for a run. When I got back, someone was pounding on my door like they were trying to break it down. It was Keith, standing there in his Sunday best, looking pissed. Before I could say anything, he pushed past me into my apartment. You missed dinner, he said, eyeing my studio with disgust. I didn't miss it. I chose not to attend. Keith's jaw tightened. Your behavior is causing problems. Your mother is upset. Your father is stressed. And Derek feels terrible. He should feel terrible. He betrayed me. People make mistakes. Stop saying that, I shouted. This wasn't a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to take out the trash. What they did was a deliberate choice. Things escalated quickly from there. Keith brought up everything he'd ever done for me. College, my first job, etc. I told him I was done with his strings-attached generosity. When he mentioned Olivia wanted to reconcile, I realized he'd been talking to her behind my back. That was the last straw. I told him to get out of my apartment. He looked shocked. Nobody talks to Keith like that. You're making a serious mistake, he warned as he left. This family has supported you your entire life. No, I corrected him, my voice trembling with anger. This family has controlled me. There's a difference. I slammed the door behind him, heart pounding. I'd just burned a major bridge. but for the first time in years, I felt free. 3 months later, I got a call from my buddy Jack, who works at a garage. "Dude, you're not going to believe who just brought in your Mustang for an oil change." The Mustang. I'd completely forgotten about it. "Let me guess," I said, a sinking feeling in my stomach. "Olivia?" "Nope. Some guy named Derek," said the car belongs to him and his girlfriend now. My blood boiled. Not only was Olivia still with Derek, but they were driving my car. I grabbed the title and headed to the garage. Derek was at the counter filling out paperwork when I walked in. He froze. "You've got some nerve," I said. Derek tried to look tough. "Olivia said you didn't want the car anymore. Did she also tell you the car is registered in my name?" Jack, behind the counter, confirmed they couldn't release the vehicle to anyone but the registered owner. Derek called Keith, of course. But I didn't care. Keith can't change whose name is on the title. I took my car back, driving past Olivia, who came running across the parking lot, calling my name. My phone exploded with calls from all of them, but I only answered when Emma called. "Holy shit," she said. "You just started World War III. Keith is livid. Not my problem. The car belongs to me." Emma told me Keith called an emergency family meeting where he ranted about how ungrateful I was, but surprisingly, also yelled at Derek for not keeping it in his pants. Their brilliant solution? I should give the car back as a gesture of goodwill, and Keith would help me buy a new one. I laughed at the absurdity. Keith then sent me a formal email with this proposal: return the car, and he'd welcome me back to the family. I didn't reply. Keith wasn't used to being ignored, and he definitely wasn't used to being defied. I knew this was just the beginning of his retaliation. 3 days later, my dad showed up, revealing Keith threatened to cut them off financially if I didn't return the car and keep quiet about the affair. I refused, telling him I wouldn't sacrifice my dignity because they couldn't stand on their own feet. We argued, and he stormed out. That night, Emma called. Keith had cut my parents off completely. They blamed me entirely, frantically trying to make their mortgage payment. Emma stood by me, despite risking her own financial support. My parents eventually showed up at my door, unannounced, looking desperate. Mom had clearly been crying for days. Dad looked like he hadn't slept in a week. They cut straight to the point. They needed $2,300 by Friday, or they'd lose the house. Keith had canceled this month's mortgage check, and nobody else would help them, for fear of getting on his bad side. I was their last resort. I couldn't believe the audacity. "So, you're asking me for money after telling me I ruined your lives?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and pain. They just stared back, with this mix of desperation and entitlement that made my stomach turn. I explained that I couldn't bail them out, partly because I didn't have that kind of cash, but mostly because I refused to become their new financial crutch. "If I do this now, you'll just expect me to keep doing it," I told them. "I'm not going to replace Keith in your lives." They left without another word, my mom sobbing quietly as they walked to their car, probably one Keith had bought them. That night, I tossed and turned, imagining them losing their home because of my stand against Keith. Around 2 a.m., I caved and wrote them a check for $1,000. Not enough to solve the problem, but something to help. I included a note making it clear this was a one-time thing, that they needed to learn to stand on their own. I slipped it under their door before dawn. They never mentioned it, never called to say thanks, never asked for more. Somehow, that silence cut deeper than all their anger and blame. It's been 8 months since the car incident. A lot has changed. I wish I could say my parents saw the light and realized Keith's money wasn't worth his control, but that's not how it played out. According to Emma, they downsized to a small apartment. Dad came out of retirement to work at a hardware store. Mom still won't speak to me, convinced I destroyed their comfortable life out of spite. Keith, true to form, made an example of them to the rest of the family. "This is what happens when you raise ungrateful children," he reportedly said at a family gathering. I wasn't invited to. The message was clear, cross Keith, and you'll end up like my parents. Most of the family fell in line, cutting me off completely. Cousins who I grew up with, aunts and uncles who used to slip me $20 bills on my birthday. All gone, terrified of losing Keith's financial support. Eventually, I realized that relationships built on fear and financial dependence weren't real connections anyway. Emma and I have gotten closer than ever. She moved out of our parents' house and got her own place, refusing Keith's offers of financial help. She's struggling a bit, working 2 jobs to make rent, but she says she's never been happier. It's like I can finally breathe, she told me over beers last week. I know exactly what she means. As for Derek and Olivia, their relationship imploded spectacularly about a month after the car incident. According to Emma, who heard it from our cousin Jen, one of the few who still talks to us secretly, they had a massive fight in the middle of a family dinner. Olivia accused Derek of using her to get to Keith's money. Derek called her a gold digger. They both stormed out. The stress of losing their transportation, my car had exposed all the cracks in their relationship. Olivia tried to contact me after the breakup, sent me a long text about how she'd made a terrible mistake, how Derek had manipulated her, how she'd never stopped loving me. I didn't respond. Some bridges can't be rebuilt once they're burned. The Mustang is running beautifully, by the way. I had to put some work into it after getting it back. Derek and Olivia hadn't maintained it properly, but now it's better than ever. Sometimes I take it for long drives out to the coast. Windows down, music blasting. Those moments with nothing but open road ahead of me are when I feel most at peace. Last week, something unexpected happened. I was getting home from work when I spotted a familiar figure sitting on the steps to my apartment building. Olivia. She looked like hell. Hair unwashed, wearing sweatpants. Nothing like the perfectly put-together woman I'd been engaged to. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keys in hand. She stood up, eyes pleading. "I need the diamond bracelet. I left it at our old place. My mom gave it to me." "You mean the bracelet I bought you for your birthday last year? The one that cost me 3 months' salary?" I interrupted, my voice flat. Her face flushed. "Look, I know things ended badly, but I really need it. Derek and I broke up. I lost my job, and I could sell it to cover rent this month." The audacity was almost impressive. "So, let me get this straight," I said, taking a step closer. "You cheated on me with my cousin, took my car, and now you want the expensive bracelet I bought you so you can pawn it?" "Please," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I have nowhere else to go." "Not my problem," I said, walking past her. "The bracelet is gone anyway. I sold it months ago. A lie, but it gave me a satisfaction I wasn't expecting." "Please," she called after me. I closed the door on whatever sob story she was spinning. I'd been played enough. 2 days later, my dad called. Apparently, Olivia had gone crying to my parents after I turned her away. "Keith says you need to help her out," my dad started. I laughed into the phone. "Keith is still calling the shots, huh?" "He's family," my dad said defensively. "And he thinks you're being unnecessarily cruel to Olivia." "Of course, he does," I replied. "Because heaven forbid anyone in this family suffers consequences for their actions. He wants to meet with you. Says it's time to put this nonsense behind us." "That's not going to happen," I said firmly. "I'm done with all of this. With Keith's manipulation, with your inability to stand up to him, with this entire family dynamic. Tell Keith I wish him well, but I won't be coming." Dad's voice hardened. "So that's it? After everything?" "Yeah," I said. "That's it. I've made my peace with walking away. I suggest you guys do the same." I hung up and blocked his number. Did the same with every family member except Emma. She understood when I explained I needed a complete break. It's been 2 months since then. Emma tells me the family is still in chaos. Keith is furious that his control is slipping. Apparently, some of the younger cousins are starting to question his authority too. My parents are still struggling financially, but refuse to admit they made a mistake choosing Keith's money over supporting me. The funny thing about cutting toxic people out of your life is how much room it makes for better things. I'm dating someone new. Nothing serious yet, but she's kind and genuine in a way Olivia never was. I got a promotion at work. The Mustang is running better than ever. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that sometimes you have to lose what you thought you wanted to find out what you actually need. I thought I needed Olivia. I thought I needed my family's approval. Turns out all I really needed was the courage to stand up for myself. For any guys reading this who might be going through something similar, whether it's a cheating partner, a controlling family member, or just feeling trapped in a situation that's slowly killing your spirit, take it from me, walking away is hard, but staying in a situation that diminishes you is much harder in the long run. You deserve better. We all do. Time keeps moving, relentless and indifferent to the wreckage we leave behind. It's been 2 years since I walked away from Keith and the suffocating embrace of my family. 2 years since Olivia's betrayal shattered my carefully constructed life. 2 years to rebuild brick by painful brick. The silence from my parents has been deafening. Emma fills me in occasionally, painting a bleak picture of their continued reliance on Keith, despite the simmering resentment. They've become shells of their former selves, existing solely within the parameters Keith dictates. Emma tried, she really did, to bridge the gap, but the chasm between us has grown too wide, filled with unspoken accusations and bitter regrets. She visits when she can, mostly holidays. Olivia faded into the background noise of the city, a cautionary tale whispered among mutual acquaintances. She bounced from job to job, struggling to make ends meet, her carefully curated image crumbling under the weight of reality. I heard she eventually moved back in with her parents, a stark contrast to the glamorous life she craved. A small part of me, the part that remembers the good times, feels a flicker of sadness, but it's quickly extinguished by the memory of her betrayal. Derek? He's still working for his dad, still coasting on Keith's generosity, a constant reminder of the family's warped values. Emma says he never quite recovered from the Olivia debacle. Keith still holds it over his head, a subtle form of control disguised as fatherly concern. As for Keith, well, the power dynamic within the family has shifted ever so slightly. Some of the younger cousins, emboldened by my defiance, have started to question his authority, demanding more autonomy and less financial dependence. It's a slow burn, a quiet rebellion, but it's there. A crack in the monolithic facade Keith spent decades constructing. My life, however, is vibrant with possibilities I never imagined. Sarah, the woman I'm dating, is a breath of fresh air, a potter with calloused hands and a kind heart. She sees me, the real me, flaws and all, and loves me anyway. We spend our weekends exploring hidden trails, attending local art fairs, and simply enjoying each other's company. It's a quiet, unassuming love, a stark contrast to the whirlwind romance I had with Olivia. A steady flame compared to a flash fire. My career has taken off. The promotion I received after the dust settled has opened doors I never thought possible. I'm leading a team on a major construction project, a new community center in an underserved neighborhood. It's challenging, fulfilling work, the kind that makes me feel like I'm actually making a difference. The Mustang, my beloved 67, is my constant companion. I spend hours tinkering with it, finding solace in the familiar rumble of the engine and the smell of gasoline. It's more than just a car. It's a symbol of resilience, a reminder that even broken things can be restored and made new. It's a physical representation of my own journey. One evening, I received a handwritten letter. No return address. The handwriting was shaky, familiar. It was from my mom. My dearest son, I know it's been a long time. I don't know if you'll even read this, but I had to try. Your father and I have been doing a lot of thinking lately. We see now the sacrifices you made, the stand you took, and we understand the cost you paid. We made choices we now deeply regret. Keith's control has choked the very life out of our family. We aren't asking for forgiveness. We know we don't deserve it. But we wanted you to know that we see you. We are proud of the man you've become. You are everything we hoped we would be. We are grateful for the moments when you stood up for what was right. Now, we wish we had the courage to do the same. Know that we love you. Always. Mom tears streamed down my face as I read her words. Not tears of joy, but tears of understanding. Tears of grief for the lost time, the broken bonds, the missed opportunities. It wasn't an absolution, but it was a start. A fragile olive branch extended across a vast divide. I didn't respond immediately. I needed time to process, to weigh the impact of her words, to decide what they meant for my future. A week later, Sarah and I were driving along the coast, the Mustang eating up the miles with its powerful engine. The sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the ocean. I pulled over to a secluded overlook, a place where the world seemed to stretch out forever. "I got a letter," I said, breaking the comfortable silence. "From my mom." I told her everything about the family, about Keith, about Olivia, about the sacrifices I'd made and the pain I'd endured. She listened patiently, her eyes filled with compassion. When I finished, she took my hand and squeezed it gently. "It's okay to be angry," she said softly. "It's okay to be sad. It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling. But don't let it consume you. Don't let it define you." I looked out at the ocean, at the endless horizon, and I knew she was right. I couldn't let the past dictate my future. I had to move forward, to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. I took a deep breath and turned to Sarah, a faint smile gracing my lips. I think it's time to write her back. It wouldn't be a grand reconciliation, a dramatic reunion, or an instant healing of all wounds. But it would be a start, a small step towards forgiveness, towards understanding, towards a future where the echoes of the past didn't drown out the promise of a new dawn. A future where I could finally define myself, not by what I lost, but by what I choose to build.